All right, we got Missouri Representative Crystal Quade here running as the Democratic candidate for governor. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you stopping by St. Joe. So, like I said, we just have these to where our viewing area gets to kind of know the candidates. Tell us a little bit about Crystal.
Well, I grew up in rural Southwest Missouri out in Webster County. I come from a regular working class background. My mom waited tables my whole life, just until a couple weeks ago actually. And my stepfather drove almost an hour into the closest town of Springfield to work in the factory. And because of their hard work, I'm the very first in my family to have graduated from high school. I moved to Springfield to go to Missouri State University to become a social worker. I worked a little bit in government, did a lot of social work down in Springfield, and started my family. And in 2016, decided to run for the state house. Winning that election, I've been serving ever since.
That's awesome. So speaking of the state house, for those unaware, tell me a little bit about your political experience that you believe has you ready for this position that you're going after this November.
Well, as first mentioned, I won my first race in 2016, and I've been serving in Jefferson City for the last 8 years. But for the past 6 of them, I've actually been the Democratic floor leader in the Missouri House. I'm the longest serving for either party since term limits have been enacted to serve in a leadership position. And so much of what we do there, of course, is working with our state budget to try to put forward things that I believe are moral and just and what we should be fighting for. And of course, working across the aisle. As a Democrat in the state of Missouri, I learned very quickly how deeply important it is to not care who gets the credit when you're trying to move something forward that helps people. And so I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish.
What would you like to specifically accomplish if you were to be elected governor?
One of the things that I hear the most about from folks is their frustration with state government as a whole. Whether it's trying to call into Medicaid to ask some questions and being on hold for 4+ hours if you even get through it all to talk to a real human, or the fact that right now the state of Missouri isn't even paying its child care provider bills on time. We're losing daycare centers left and right because the state of Missouri simply isn't paying its bills. If you and I don't pay our bills, we know there are negative ramifications for that, but unfortunately the state continues to fail in so many of these places. And so step one as governor is to make sure that our agencies are meeting the basic promises that we give to Missourians. But beyond that, as I mentioned, it's really making sure that as a state we're investing your dollars into things that are directly impacting everyday Missourians, not the wealthiest or the corporations in our state, but making sure our public schools are adequately funded. Right now we have some of the lowest paid teachers in the entire country, lowest funded education systems in the entire country. We need to be investing in things like rural access to health care. We've lost 19 hospitals in the last decade. The list goes on and on of places where we really have been failing as a state. And so as governor, I really want to put us back on track.
Right on. So I know there's a few amendments that are being, very popular that are also on the ballot. If you'd like to kind of talk about them. First of all, Amendment 2, sports betting. What's your thoughts on that?
What I encourage folks when we're having a discussion on Amendment 2 is to separate sports betting from the public education funding piece that you're seeing on the TV ads everywhere. And just really look at it on, do you think sports betting should be passed or not? And cast your vote that way. The unfortunate reality, as we've seen in our state for quite some time, is unless we elect pro-public education lawmakers and a governor, then that money isn't guaranteed to go to public education. And I know that's something that a lot of folks deeply care about, and we're getting inundated with ads from both sides of this conversation. But I encourage folks to try to separate those two when they're casting their vote.
So going on to the next big one, Amendment 3, take me through that in your eyes.
Well, folks probably know that Missouri currently has the most restrictive abortion ban in the entire country, without exceptions for rape or incest. We have very dangerous life of the mother provisions in our law right now. And in fact, we had over 600 doctors sign on to a letter just a couple weeks ago saying how much we desperately need to pass Amendment 3 because they can't do their jobs. I am fully in support of this. I think politicians, quite frankly, need to get out of our personal lives and let families and doctors make the decisions that work for them. This is really not a partisan issue. I have been traveling the state, going to a lot of the reddest counties in the state of Missouri, and there's not a place I go that I don't have a woman come up to me and tell me her personal story of a miscarriage or some family planning situation that has come up that was very scary, or unfortunately, I've had a lot of folks talk to me about traumatic abuse situations. And so, this really is a personal thing that, in my belief, we need to get politicians out of, and that's why I'm supporting Amendment 3.
Last one, we'll go over Prop A. Take me through your thoughts on the minimum wage.
Yeah, so Proposition A, as folks probably know, increases the minimum wage. But what I am probably even more excited by is the concept around mandatory earned sick leave. I'm a working parent. I know that what it means when your kid gets sick and you have to call into work and pray that you have enough PTO to actually take off work to take care of your kids. But the reality is, in the state of Missouri, a lot of people do not have employers who provide sick leave. And so Proposition A will give, for the hours worked, you get essentially a work comp time for sick leave, and so that folks can actually call in and be able to take care of themselves and their families and not fear losing their minimum wage jobs. And I think this is really going to be a life-changing thing for a lot of people in our state, and I'm really excited to vote for it.
That's awesome. Last thing I have, obviously we've talked a lot about many different topics. If you kind of had just a personal message to Missouri going into November, what would you say?
I would say that we deserve better than what we've been getting. We've briefly talked about some of the places where we've seen Missouri really failing, whether it's our public schools or our infrastructure. We still have parts of the state of Missouri that don't have broadband internet access. We are short law enforcement officers everywhere that you go. Crime is rising in the state and has been for quite some time. And again, our state agencies are really failing at their jobs, and we deserve better than that. And I jumped into this race because I want to offer something different than the status quo. And I think it's so deeply important that we have elected leaders who understand the struggles that regular working class folks are going through. And, unfortunately, what we've been seeing coming out of Jefferson City is a lot of folks who are catering to the wealthiest or the largest campaign donors to their campaigns, and so worried about their next jobs that they're not actually doing the ones they're elected for. And I'm hoping to jump in and provide something different.
Well, we really appreciate you coming by and talking to our audience and letting them get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all.